Tim Mayer, and I'm here with my friend H Gulick. This is the second episode in our podcast, H's podcast, Struck by Lightning. And last time we talked a little bit about who H is and his journey and to where we are today. Today we're going to talk about the diagnosis, his diagnosis with glioblastoma multiforme, which, as we talked about a little bit last time, is a non-recoverable type of a brain tumor. I called it brain cancer last time, and you corrected, a week ago, and you corrected me and said it's a brain tumor that is a cancer. But the part that the cancer doesn't get you, it's the tumor that gets you. So that's the operable, or that's the piece that is important. And for people in other parts of the world, they may know it not as a glioblastoma, but they may know it as a grade 4 astrocytoma.
Okay.
That's what the World Health Organization calls it. So anyway, it's a something that grows in the brain, and it's very aggressive. I read a quote from somebody last night that said it's the bull shark of cancers, and it's not good. And you were going about your day on a Saturday, going to the hardware store, and it went bad.
Yeah. So I did not expect to have as dramatic a change in my life on a Saturday morning as I ended up having. As you mentioned, I'm out running errands, off to the hardware store, and to be fair, having pretty bad headache, and have decided, okay, I'm going to make my way home. And as I was driving, I had three or four stops to make, and as overconfident dudes are later in life, I was negotiating with myself that, like, all right, I can make 2 of these stops and then I'll go home. And then I was down to, like, all right, I'll make 1 of these stops. And then I was like, I really feel awful. I'm having a hard time driving. I'm just going to get home. Should have made that decision about 2 questions earlier, because pulling into a roundabout, bumped into a car that I just did not see and had a 2-mile-per-hour accident. Thank God, could not have hit a lovelier person who was super gracious about the whole thing. And straight up, it was my fault. I was able to talk through the window. Hey, so sorry. Can we pull over to this parking lot and we'll exchange information and get sorted out? And was not feeling well or right, but managed to park the car, didn't hit anything else. And really the last thing I remember from that phase was I was standing outside my car, and this poor woman who had already been in a car accident with me, and I tower over this woman. I'm double her size easily. Was being really very gracious about the weird dude who didn't seem right. Because the last thing I remember her asking is, hey, are you okay? And I was like, yeah. Well, we were going to exchange information. And I was, yes. And I vaguely have a recollection of pulling out a card to give her to share information. And then my next awareness was I was in an emergency room.
Well, it's probably worth noting that at this point, being an FBI agent and being, you are very much on duty 24/7. You were also armed at this moment.
So I had the wisdom as I was getting out of the car to exchange information. I had taken my weapon off and secured it in the footwell in a bag. The problem with the firearms is that they do not add good things to encounters with the public usually when they're not firearm type encounters.
Right.
There's no reason to be adding bad energy to it. That I was like, okay.
So I should probably tell this little piece of the story, which is that you then collapsed, passed out, collapsed, and turns out she's an intensive care nurse, and was very, very wonderful, and started the CPR protocol. Let's put it that way. And the next thing you know, you're in the emergency room.
Yeah. So apparently I had a seizure in front of her and probably was not breathing properly during that seizure. So she did the right thing and started doing chest compressions. Thank God she was tiny. She didn't really hurt me.
And probably it's worth telling people, because put that in context, that the good CPR is crunchy, is a paramedic saying. So she luckily wasn't crunching you too badly.
Not that badly. I do joke when I teach CPR that anyone who doesn't need CPR is going to let you do it to them for too long. So apparently I was flippering around enough that it was apparent that, like, okay, he doesn't need that. My friends, the policemen, showed up, and because when all you have is a hammer, everything's a nail, gave me all the doses of Narcan they had with them, assuming I was some sort of overdose. Not actually the problem of the day. The ambulance crews showed up. A side effect of having a seizure is when you wake up and the computer is turning back on, you're pretty well disoriented. I'm 6'3" and 230 pounds. I am a patient management challenge. And apparently the wrestling match I was giving the EMS crew gave them a pretty good workout. But they were nice enough to bundle me up and take me to a nearby emergency room. And I calmed down and woke up in the emergency room. And at the time, I was 56 years old. And when unexpected new onset seizure in a 56-year-old, you assume someone's had a stroke. So got worked up on a stroke track algorithm, which very early on includes them doing a CAT scan of your head. Usually they're looking for bleeding. They're looking for bleeding or evidence that something's obstructing the flow of blood in your brain somewhere. Much to their surprise and mine, they did not find bleeding. They found an unknown foreign mass in the back of my head, the part of the brain that mostly controls how you see pictures and stuff, vision stuff. Unknown mass in the back of my head,
So that from that, the first call is to a neurologist.
Yep. So consult with a neurologist, regardless, just being on the stroke track. As soon as the mass is identified, then you become a referral to surgery, because at some point very soon, someone's going to drill a hole in your head and take a little bit of whatever it is out of you and put it under a microscope and try and figure out, okay, what is this made out of?
So how quickly did that happen?
Well, interestingly enough, apparently there is a characteristic of the CAT scan that almost anyone in the business will identify, oh, this is a glioblastoma tumor, just from how it appears on the films.
Right.
I have a absolutely lovely care team at NYU Langone, and every time they have a choice of being nice to me about how they're giving me bad information, they have been great about it. So in retrospect, while all of them had a pretty good idea what was going on with me, they were all like, well, no, we need to do some more tests and see what's going on, and kept it open-ended, that I ended up having 2 very pleasant weekends of, oh, hey, you're getting care, there's a plan, before being told just how bad the news was.
And just going back, you're in the local emergency room. You start at the local emergency room.
Hmm.
And there's a phone call, presumably to Elizabeth, your wife. And I'm sure you communicated it to her as, yeah, I fell down, boom. She shows up and...
Well, so she's ahead of the curve. So I actually had a credential on me. So the EMS crew and the police, did find my firearm, did find my identification, and called the office. And I cannot tell you what kind of tribe my organization is, that they pulled out the stops. And immediately, my boss and good friend Carl appeared at the hospital. He collected my tools from the police department who secured them and made sure Elizabeth was squared away. And I didn't have any opportunity to control the message to Elizabeth because she was standing there when I came back around. I have been guilty of massaging the message to my wife sometimes of like, okay, we're going to get to full disclosure, but we're going to pace this out a little bit. Not this time. She probably knew more than I did sooner than I did. And got myself admitted to the community hospital for a couple days as I got worked up by the neurologist there. And after a pretty brief stay, it was like, hey, you're going to need brain surgery, is the long and the short of it.
Right.
We discussed this a little bit offline. I am a little embarrassed that I have enjoyed much better medical care than I think most people would have because I'm in the business. I have
you're
a very deep
knowledgeable,
Rolodex.
and so it's worth explaining. Elizabeth has worked in healthcare also her entire career, and more on the management side. When you and I met her, she was the
She was doing
cardiology
the
tech,
EKGs.
putting the EKGs on in the emergency room of St. Luke's Hospital in Fountain Hill, and so she's
in the business.
She's not stupid about this stuff either. And you guys are great advocates. You've had tragedy with your son Connor, that you had to navigate through. You've had great experiences. You've been a paramedic for 30 years at this point. Your son, Will, is a paramedic. And your mother-in-law is one of the, I guess I would describe her as one of the premier nurses and a paramedic. She was she told me the other day she was paramedic number 253 in the state of Pennsylvania. I think I've got that number right, but it's close enough.
The originals.
The originals. So it's deep, and you're able to advocate for yourself, which so many people are not able to.
Well, we had the luxury of at least what we were being told. I have to chuckle. I used the line this morning during a meeting with my doctor. It's like, okay, all those words were English. That didn't actually mean a lot to me. And again, Alex Miller, the whole crew that takes care of me, they're fantastic. And she took the cue and she said, oh, okay, let me fill in the blanks here on this.
Right. And you're somebody who knows a lot of words that most people don't know.
Fortunately, what Elizabeth and I both recognized was there is a version of care for this that is completely appropriate for me to be referred to who is next in the queue for neurosurgical service based on the relationships the hospital I was at have. And if not for choosing to go a different route, all of my care would have been probably within 15 miles of my house down here with perfectly competent providers who, just by the nature of it, are not getting huge volumes of patients that I would kind of be a special case for them. They're like, oh, this one's a little unusual. I'm in the Northeast. Like there's tons of cancer care here, but even so, just so much local variance in it. Uh, I made reference to, I have a very deep Rolodex. I've worked with medical professionals my whole life. One of the people in my Rolodex is a fellow I met through my professional career, and for years he was the medical director of the Air Force Pararescue Specialists. And we trained with these people. And Steve is a friend. In Steve's past life, he was, for real, a brain cancer surgeon in New York. It is a phenomenal resource when one of your friends has subject matter expertise in your problem. Yep. And has a Rolodex of his own. And quite frankly, because of his intervention and advocacy, within 11 days, I was having brain surgery. And 11 days after passing out next to my car and having someone do CPR on me, they took a dangerous brain tumor out of my head. Right. That is probably the most impactful thing on how long I'll survive this disease.
So for people that don't have that Rolodex, what would you advise them at that moment? You're waking up in the emergency room, however you got there, however you entered into the whether it's you've got headaches and I need to go see a doctor or whatever it might be, or this migraine's not getting better, whatever your symptom is that enters you into this process, what would you advise people to do?
Well, twofold. If you have questions, ask. These conversations are wildly awkward. You're dealing with healthcare providers who are telling people news they don't want to hear. Being trained as a physician, being trained as a healthcare provider does not always train people how to be very good or effective communicators. And sometimes they're avoiding the awkward just as much as you are. Mm-hmm. And if you don't demonstrate that you want to talk about it, they're not above taking the out. They will ask, do you have any questions? And when you say no, they'll kind of whisper to themselves,
they'll move on.
Thank God.
Right.
And they'll move on.
And it's worth saying, these are life and death conversations.
Oh, yeah. Try not to leave encounters with the people who have the information without having asked all your questions. The other one is take notes. My ability to recall what I was actually told when the subtext of what I was told was, hey, you're not going to have a full lifespan. You'd be amazed how much that crowds out your ability to remember the other details that were mentioned during that conversation. I actually use one of the apps now that transcribes meetings when I meet with my care team, because I've just realized, like, despite thinking I'm a hard ass and I can walk through fire, I am just so overwhelmed in these conversations. I'm remembering maybe 3 things I was told, and the rest of it is just background noise, that it is invaluable to me to have the transcript of, like, okay, what did we talk about? They mentioned these 3 options. What was the decision criteria for these 3 options? Keep asking questions and write down the answers.
So I think what I'm hearing out of that is find some unaffected party, whether that be an AI transcriber or somebody who is a friend but who can help you, somebody who can help take notes or do whatever it is, because first of all, this disease is affecting your brain. That's what it is. So, and it manifests itself differently for different people depending on where the tumor occurs. You've told me this. For you, it's in the back of the brain where you're having visual. It affects the visual part of the brain, part of the computer as you describe it, and so the really important thing out of that is H is Mr. I'm good in an emergency. I've got it. Whatever the emergency is, I've got it. And that's not easy. That's the take home is I think for people who aren't in the emergency business and in the managing crisis business, they shouldn't expect, if you can't do it, how could they expect to do it for themselves?
Oh, when we worked at St. Luke's, we enjoyed basically auditing an emergency medicine residency.
Right.
As lay people coming in as patients, we are so far ahead being prepared to understand what they're talking about.
Yep.
And still no chance.
Right.
Emotionally overwhelming. I think I've had very little cognitive impairment, but I do, and just, we were saying before, like today I had a little bit of brain fog as we got rolling along here. And I'm like, hey, be careful. You are not going to be, stuff's not making it onto the hard drive. And that's like no language barrier.
And at the beginning, right. And for some people, there is a language barrier. For some people, there's a hearing impairment. For some people, lots of opportunities for things to be going wrong while you're having these life and death conversations about, okay, we've got options, pick one.
Right.
And so, you went into, so from the local hospital, you then got transferred to the hospital in New York City.
Well, the irony is, it's funny how some things are anticlimactic. I was discharged, handed my shoes, and walked out of the hospital.
Okay.
Climbed in the car with my wife. She drove me home. A couple days later, I'm riding the ferry across to Manhattan. If you can find advocates, my friend Steve, I was like, well, hey, I called him up and flat out was like, hey, I need something. Purpose of call, I need something. I need a referral to a neurosurgeon. I'm thinking about, I have one locally. I'm thinking about meeting two guys, gals, who could care less. Again, and God loves Steve, who he will not mind me saying he does have a flavor of obnoxious New Yorker to him. He was just like, do you want to go shopping or do you want me to just send you to the number 2 or 3 guy in the country? And I was like, I'm going to go with your plan, Steve.
Right.
And that wasn't fluff. He's completely credible of like, hey, this is what I can do and this is what will happen. And like I said, 11 days later, a dangerous tumor that is just continuing to seed dangerous cells in my head is no longer in my head. I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
What was that 11 days like with Elizabeth, with your kids? What was the conversation with Will and Grace?
So don't underestimate how much you've modeled to your children over the years. Both of my kids have dealt with difficulty. Will was old enough to understand when Connor passed away.
Yep.
Grace hadn't been born yet. Both kids have dealt with the realities of dangerous depression, and mom suffering from dangerous depression and the realities that have. And both kids have watched for their entire upbringing of, okay, we're going to deal with things as calmly as we can, as honestly as we can, and try to stay close to the metal on what reality is. It's a little interesting. My brother Peter, my brother Peter is lovely. Uh, and he has struggled with this dramatically. You know, he's not digging that his brother has serious illness. Pete has not. Pete's had a very full life, and thank God has not had quite the same difficulties to deal with. He certainly has dealt with family members who've had medical problems, but it's a little source of friction that Pete would be getting upset about things and adding the wrong energy to the conversation, and trying to manage. Hey, Pete, we do need to manage this because your energy is leaking into Elizabeth and the kids and everyone else, and like, hey, all of us, the cups are almost full, so like let's take the time outs and reset and things like that. The conversation with my kids is a little easier because both of them can put their heads down and go about. They have a script. My daughter is going off to college. It's like, okay, so what am I going to do? I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to go to college and wrap up my 4 years. My son is far enough along that what's he going to do? It's like, okay, at the time he was just finishing up becoming a paramedic and going through his in-doc into that, and like, okay, I'll keep going to work. I have a plan with that. Elizabeth, a lot harder for Elizabeth.
Yeah.
That. Ooh, what's going on? Elizabeth suddenly became my Uber driver because if you have a seizure, you don't drive for 6 months in this state, because having another seizure behind the wheel of a car can have some really serious repercussions. So they're, thank God for a drug called Keppra, which manages seizures wonderfully. And the good fortune to not have any more seizures. But like suddenly my wife is dealing with being my primary care provider. But awkwardly, I don't need much from her other than to drive me places. So fortunately, she didn't need to do any nursing care for me particularly. All she ended up having to do all the time, which was brutal, was worry and worry a lot.
Well, that's worth maybe pointing out that this is a slow moving emergency.
Oh yeah.
And there's a lot of time to think about things.
Usually at 3 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah. Which doesn't help the process at all. And I mean, you've got a lot of decisions to make as a family. You've got a lot of conversations to have as a family, but you're going to get to a surgery, which is a not insignificant surgery, because I mean, they're going to open up your head and poke sharp sticks in there. It's a little more nuanced than that.
Yeah, but no, they're going to go in there and stir. So if you don't need it, don't get it.
Right. So and that's the it's not quite the end point, but you've got this process that's getting you there.
Right.
And
so I had the luxury of you can always elect not to get care. That
sure
is that is always an option available to you. And none of the care is risk free. The most mundane surgery can go horribly wrong.
Yeah.
Fortunately, mostly as a lifestyle posture, long before I had this, it was like, okay, I am going to avail myself of the maximum of medicine to maintain the maximum of capacity. So there was not a whole lot of, hey, what are the other treatment options? They're like, no, the definitive thing for us to do is drill a hole in your head and take the tumor out.
Right.
It's like, okay, how do we do that with greatest chance for best success?
But, the headline about glioblastomas that everybody's, well, not everybody, but when you hear glioblastoma, the next thing you hear is that the survival rate for glioblastoma in the first year is under 50%.
Mm-hmm.
And you've explained to me that that's a little bit misleading, because there are a lot of people for whom they get the diagnosis late in the progression of the disease. And so unfortunately their survival rate is going to be low, and or there's it turns out it's somewhere deep in the brain, or somewhere where it just isn't operable, or you don't want to be poking sharp sticks. So there you're really talking about managing quality of life over the whatever life expectancy you may have. So, but nevertheless, the headline is that this is a disease with a very poor prognosis.
Oh yeah. Well, and I'll tell you what, almost to the point of silliness, I hang on to both hands that I've got the good version of this.
Yep.
That this is somewhere in the back of my head where they can open me up and melon scoop it out without changing who I am too dramatically, and I am not completely blind. I'm like,
yep.
Okay, we're cooking with oil here. This has satisfactory future, and success.
But during that, but during that 11 days, the not completely blind part, was not a given.
Oh no. So I have wonderful friends. I was sent to the hospital with a Lego ambulance kit, and the joke was, I like Legos. I enjoy the focus of it. It's good for my anxiety, things like that. And it was like, okay, this is going to be great occupational therapy when I come out. They're messing with your vision. Let's see if you still have any spatial, you can recognize stuff. I cannot tell you how satisfying it is when the crew that was just rooting around in your brain a few hours ago comes in to check on you, and you are building Legos on the table in your hospital bed successfully. Yep. And they're like, okay, where did you come from? I'm like, hey, listen, I'm just happy. I recognize the square peg does not go in the round hole. That, this is how I put the Legos together. That's just fear. It's like, okay, fear. Like this could go really badly. I'm
gonna misquote Eckhart Tolle, who said that fear is the projection of something that hasn't happened yet.
What's weird about this is a lot of it has already happened.
Right. So there's a lot to be fearful about with reason.
Yeah, these are not illegitimate fears. But getting back to I've enjoyed A+ medical care every step of the way, and had enough experience to recognize, okay, I want to go to a place where the system is treating me, not a rock star dude or dudette, and I'm not an outlier. I think they might have done 2 of my surgeries the day I was there. Yep. I was just the Tuesday guy. I was like, oh yeah, we do these all the time. These right. 20 people who work in the operating room, this is what they do.
All 20 of them are rock stars.
Well, all 20 of them are rock stars. All 20 of them are a team. And the only thing novel about me is like, ooh, this dude's a little bit bigger and in better shape than many of the people we're bringing in here.
Yep.
That was as much as an outlier as I was. And then I went up to the intensive care unit where I was like, everybody there is a rock star. And like, oh yeah, he's the guy who had a tumor taken out of his head tonight. And, yep. They're not suffering from any indecision or what do we do next? It's like, no, this is what we do for a living. Very quickly
and
recognize
you and I are going to discuss, I think, in another episode, we're going to talk about quality of care and
okay.
And how you got that quality of care, and discuss a little bit about different situations that how not everybody has access to that, and because it's made a huge difference in your life over the last
Oh yeah.
12 months. And I think it's a really important thing for us to discuss. I want to. I have a book here. You were kind enough to do that, and H has an Instagram account, and I recommend people go seek it out. And it's something you started, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, talking about leadership and leadership tools and things like that. It's under leadership tools. Your son Will assembled this book. These are all kinds of sayings of you and so on. But I want to read the introduction that he put in here, because it puts a lot of this in context. I think it does it really well. And it's not it's tough stuff to read. Anyway, H Gulick is a career FBI special agent and paramedic who has spent his professional life operating in high-risk, high-consequence environments. As a special agent, he has worked complex investigations targeting both international and domestic terrorists, contributing to their disruption and apprehension. His work has required decisive action, disciplined leadership, and the ability to perform when conditions are uncertain and the stakes are high. In parallel to his federal service, Gulick has served on the front lines of emergency medicine as a paramedic, making critical life or death decisions and directly saving lives when time was measured in seconds. It goes on. But this is your son.
There is a little higher flattery than when your kid says nice things about you.
Yeah. But now you're in the hospital with getting your brain worked on. Talk about the identity hit. What's going on there?
So interestingly, like I have been the provider of my household. Elizabeth works. We all work. But Elizabeth has largely worked to accommodate my career. That was the lion's share of our income and has been remarkably tolerant. And we got a couple buys. Like I was on the verge of being mandatory to retire just because of age. But, we weren't going to lose the house. It's like, okay, my retirement, I'm about to retire. I will still be able to retire. The thing is that the day before this all happened, I was at the range with my squad and we were doing firearms and tactics. And I was entertaining the idea of, well, I could get an extension and work as an acting supervisor for another half a year if I do the run in time. And how bad does my knee hurt? And really thinking, okay, I've probably got a good 10 or 15 years still in the tank of, 2 or 3 more years of being a special agent. I've been a paramedic forever and a day. I am a flight paramedic. I do odd things. I do a decent amount of expedition medicine as a medic, as a set medic. If you're ever bored one night, you can find me on Shark Week talking with Paul DeGelder. Like I have gotten to do fun, cool guy stuff and had every intention of, I will try and keep doing fun, cool guy stuff for, I don't know, another 5 years or a decade. God love Elizabeth. She made it perfectly clear. Like, hey, if you go take a job that you're not here, don't expect me to be here.
Right.
So, it's like, okay, we got that out of the way. So it was going to be on the guest appearance plan. Fine. But like this diagnosis, like all that stuff's off the table. If you want to make your care team really amused, talk to them about scuba diving after they've drilled a hole in your head. It starts out with like, well, why would you want to do that? I said, well, that aside, could I do that? And they're like, yeah, no, that's not happening.
Yep.
But It's tempting to say like you might feel helpless. Fortunately, I didn't because I was empowered with so much authority to make decisions about how things would go. Like I wasn't sidelined by not understanding. I was like, okay, pretty much everything they were telling me, I grokked. I was like, okay, I get it. Uh, do you want to get brain surgery? It's like, well, brain surgery sounds scary. But I'm pretty sure if I don't get the brain surgery, not pretty sure. I know that if I don't get the brain surgery, uh, like this just accelerates everything. No treatment, 3 months survival. So, oh yeah, no problem, surgery.
Let's do the surgery.
Yep. And my care team's great. Like they go, it is a running joke with them that they will come up with suggestions. Hey, you guys do this for a living. I'm going to defer to your judgment. I'm pretty sure that it turns out that this tea extract from Shanghai that is currently being mentioned as being helpful, it may have come across your desk. If there's anything really good out there, I'm pretty sure you all are going to tell me about it.
Yep.
And they are very gracious about, I do not leave those meetings without having additional questions. But they have empowered me to like, hey, this is your decision. I went to one of the reasons why I'm at NYU is they have quite a few of the research trials, so they are trying the new things. Yeah. So I have a disease that no one's found a cure for yet. Okay, let's go to the place where people are trying new things to cure this or like extend survival. And so far, I've been in two, about to be in a third trial with them. And pretty clearly, I have made it further than I would have otherwise.
But I think it's really, you said something. I didn't feel helpless. I didn't feel, but I think in saying that you're acknowledging that it is a very reasonable state of mind for people to feel helpless.
Right. So there are things I can control. There are things I cannot control. Most of the times when I have had the most problem with my anxiety, depression, not dealing with life well, has been a factor of not being good about recognizing what is and is not within my control. I try very hard to accept the things that are beyond my control. Like, okay, when they're bad, it's like, okay, that's not cool. But ruminating on how bad they are and that they're not in your control isn't moving the needle a lot.
Is that you taking those and putting them in a box, or is that you?
Oh no, they're still on the table there and are bad. But I can, I can look at them and be like, okay, I just can't do anything about that. I don't need to hide from it. I don't need to hide it. For example, I am going out of my way, talking with you, talking with people, to acknowledge this is a disease that's going to shorten my lifespan. I am taking some comfort in diluting the pain of that fact by stating it a lot on my terms. That like, okay, I'm probably not going to make it to 90. Probably not going to make it anywhere near 90. I can't do a whole lot about that. I will acknowledge it. I will try not to let it overwhelm everything else. And I leave it out there as a reminder that, okay, let's make sure your days are worth it. There is something remarkably valuable of going through the exercise of like, hey, if you knew you were going to be in an accident next week and get killed, how would you spend the time between now and then? Be perfectly honest, like the first few weeks of this, I had the luxury of like, okay, I can see the future coming. Let's do all the admin. Is Elizabeth and the kids actually listed as the beneficiary on everything? Are the wills squared away? what authorities does Elizabeth need if I can't? What authorities might Elizabeth need? Let's make sure that's all squared away. And it's kind of funny because again, I love this care team because I've joked with my doctor about it. And I've mentioned, it's like, this has got to wear you down that your customers do not generally have good outcomes. And she's, and these people are heroic and lovely. But, almost all of them kind of have the same story of like, well, kind of learn to only do things I want to, and don't be encumbered. It's like, it's either hell yes or no. And when there's an opportunity to be like, hey, that's not something I want to be doing with my time, can I try not, is there some way I can not have to do that? And like all these people have young families, they're not pessimistic,
Does doing the admin, as you call it, making sure your will's in place, making sure, all those things, does that give you a sense of control over outcomes?
Possibly. I have joked that there are only two things in my control on this ride. I have the first world luxury of I can choose my care. And it's not lost on me that many, many people do not. I've kind of flippantly said, like, hey, if I lived in Syria, I'd be dead 3 times already.
Well, and if you lived in some parts of our own country.
Right. No, I showed up with this problem from a position of privilege. I've been able to choose my care, and have been informed about being able to choose my care, which was, a side effect of a whole lifetime in this industry around the periphery. The other thing I get to choose is my attitude, and my attitude is not always fantastic. All the feeling, my cousin Sue, God love the curbside therapy she gave me. All the feelings are valid. Yes, Sue, all the feelings are valid. Another lovely woman. I and anyone going through this am absolutely allowed to feel however that manifests for them. That said, I'm not allowed to take that out on people. And I'm not allowed to just dump that on the people around me, my wife, my kids, my friends, that, okay, my attitude isn't always good. That doesn't give me license to behave however horribly I might, that might come out. That's like, okay, I spend some energy. When this all came on, I was spending a little bit of energy workshopping, like, okay, how do I spread this news to people? I had the odd fortune of I had to wear an eye patch for a little while because of vision disturbance. And it turned out it was wildly useful because anyone would look at me and they knew something was up. And it became this kind of gentle segue into, hey, what's going on? And I'm like, believe it or not, I have brain cancer. And we get past the, hey, I heard a rumor about you. I got half a story. And it did give me time to like, okay, let's kind of massage the messaging on this. Because depending on your attitude and tone going into those conversations, you can really blow some people up when, hey, I've actually been dealing with this for a year, but they're like, you have what? Wait a minute. They fix this, don't they? And it's like, well, not exactly. They try and stretch this out as long as possible. And not, if you want to be a jerk, you can really make people feel miserable in those moments.
I think it's, one of the things you and I discussed about doing this conversation was that you wanted to have a sense of purpose in
Oh yeah.
being able to talk about it. And I think there's a danger that people, because you're relatively well adjusted given the circumstances, that people will make the mistake of thinking he's slightly insensitive about it, or doesn't feel all those emotions. And I know you well enough to know that that's 100% wrong. But your way of dealing with it is regulating how wide open the faucet of those emotions, letting those emotions out is, and how that's going to affect people around you. And, you have this thing going on, I think, this bifurcation of your thought, which is, on the one hand, you're thinking about, this doesn't feel good. I'm upset. I'm angry. I'm mad at the world. I'm all those things, which are, as your cousin said, all those feelings are valid. And I think everybody's going through it. And on the other hand, you have this piece that comes from 35 years of dealing with this in a profession of being able to adjust the spigot on how you do it how you let this out to the world, specifically to the people close to you. And most people don't have that. Most people don't have that training. So that conversation,
probably fortunately.
Yes. I mean, it depends. I mean, there are probably times when it serves you well, and probably times when opening the spigot more would be better for you. But certainly for the people around you, it works that you're able to self-regulate that. And I think it's really important, because you and I've discussed this, that it's really understandable that first part, the anger, the frustration of dealing with limitations, the guilt. You talked to me about guilt at one point, and we'll get into that. Just all those things really are valid, and people, you're in the hospital dealing with that. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that as much as we're having a very calm conversation and you're joking and you're laughing and so on, that's just how you're communicating it, because you're a pretty good guy about not dumping on people.
It's kind of funny, like, in this household, everyone in this household, before they start, we'll call it bitching, before everyone in this household starts sharing what's in their cup today, we do have a practice of asking, like, hey, do you have the bandwidth for this? Because moment to moment, day to day, everyone's mental health goes up and down. And this might sound a little crass, and it's not a quit your bitching statement, but everyone has heard from me, hey, I got to apologize. I just don't have this one in me at the moment. Can we table this for a few hours, or maybe tomorrow? And I'll try and be here for you. But me trying to pick this up now is going to go badly. I'm going to start responding in ways that are not useful to you, when you sharing with me is you asking for help. That's not a good time it has been a wonderful tool, and I appreciate that my family takes it at face value that, like, hey, I'm not going to be able to provide you the service I want to be able to provide you just now.
And that's the
Yeah.
irony of having dealt with over the years some mental health issues,
Oh yeah.
some mental health, as you love, I love this phrase, the mental fitness in your house has gone up and down, and you all have dealt with that. And you said at one point to me, and our last episode, you talked about making all these things we problems, but you're regulating how much you rely on the we at various points based on how useful a tool that is. Because as you say, if you come into the room and you want to dump and it's not a good time, it's not going to go well.
You can crush your loved ones. There's no challenge
Yeah.
in that.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, in fact, they're all predisposed to being crushed because they love you.
Yep.
One of the notes I thought that was important to send out on my Instagram sometime last summer. I was enjoying my leader tools notes of like, hey, here are my little, here's the old man yelling off the porch. Don't hire high performing assholes. That's not good for your organization.
Right.
But one of them was, hey, get it. I appreciate you all know that I'm struggling. And I'm kind of like, okay, how am I going to, all of my relationships have been changed somewhat by this. Mostly because so many people are so generous to me that they care. And I'm, and that does change the relationship. People have a different sympathy for me. But I thought it was important to put out like, hey, I am struggling a little bit with how I talk about this, and I apologize for, hey, this didn't match where you thought I needed to be on this. I also acknowledge this is weird for all of them also. Like, one of my EMS buddies, and I had great fun. He's like, well, you know what we're all like, so I got to ask, are you dying? And I was like, yep, you're in the business. And like, oh yeah, dude, nobody gets out of this alive. He's like, oh, how soon? He's like, that's the part that's a big variable. Who knows? You might go before I do.
I think one of the things that's important, and we're going to pick it up next time on this, but
Okay.
I think one of the things that's important is that the surgery that you had was not a cure-all, fix-all, and it left you with some challenges coming out of that surgery. And I want to talk about that, and I want to talk about Legos and, high-functioning person struggling with Legos. And, and I want to talk about anger and worry and guilt and all those things. But I think it's been a lot for today. So thank you. Thank you for opening up.
Well, the other was, Tim, thanks for going on the ride, because it's not lost on me. This isn't cool for anybody to pick up and take out of the box and play with. And if you thought it was, then you're a high functioning psychopath, which I appreciate that you're not.
There's some debate about that, H.
You can get a lot of use out of a high functioning psychopath. They just need a lot of supervision. And actually shoving everything in the box too long usually produces a high functioning psychopath. So it does loop around there a little bit. Yeah, hopefully, well, a couple things. Hopefully my friends and loved ones can listen to this and it has some value to them. And I hope they appreciate that I appreciate them. To the folks who are going to watch this that we're never going to meet, maybe you're dealing with this. I have the luxury of I'm dealing with this. I'm not watching my loved one deal with this any more than any illusion that my spouse is not suffering from this. Okay, that went away. We share this diagnosis. So, but there is a little bit of like, okay, when you feel like it's not easy and it's overwhelming and you're angry at the world, as per Cousin Sue, all the feelings are valid. You don't have a lot of choices. Maybe you have the luxury of you get to choose what care you get. You always, even as the house is burning down, get to choose your attitude. I'm trying to model a good one because I want my kids to be prepared if this ever happens to them or to their loved ones. That like, okay, what can I do to increase the toolkit that they've got? And there's a certain irony to me that in the last couple of years I was working full time. Basically, I was there to be, I was a boss and I made some decisions and I had to lead, but I was mostly there to model and mentor of, okay, situation X, here is a way of addressing situation X. And without telling people how to do things, it was like, all right, let's just consistently model. Okay, here's how we're going to stick to the values of the organization, and what do we need to do for the public to come up with the right answers for these things, and what do we need to do for each other that we're actually problem solving instead of sniping at each other. And it might have only been like a month before I got sick, was literally having conversations with my peers that like, hey, we're leaving. We need to set these folks up for success because we're going to be gone. So anyone you're looking at and you're like, well, they shouldn't be a boss, you no longer have the luxury of that. They're going to be a boss. We're going to be gone. All we can do is lift them all up and set them up for success as much as they can. And like, that was about, professional things. And now here I am like, oh, okay. And then you're going to get past professional things and suddenly going to be life things. Like, how much life are you going to have? Make sure you live a good one. Okay, let's kind of model things from that approach. More word salad.
Well, I think this is the important stuff that we're going to dig into, and we're going to dig into some more next time.
Okay. Before we go further, all that was supposed to be setting me up to say thank you, because it's not lost on me. This isn't a great ride to go on with somebody, and you absolutely did not have to do this. I really appreciate that you have. So thank you very, very much.
Well, it's a privilege. And B, we love you, man.
Thank you. I love you. I love you also. You're one of my oldest, dearest friends. And it was be hard for me to articulate why, other than always have done the right thing. And again, modeling and mentoring was like, oh, I'd like to be like Tim.
I'd like to be taller.
Yeah, some things are beyond your control. You need to accept some things.
That's it. All right. We'll talk to you next time.
What else do you want to do today? Okay.
What else do I want to do? Well, I've actually got to get on a plane and go, but yeah, we'll talk again next time.
All good stuff. I'm actually going to go outside and lay down in the sun and decompress a little bit.
As you should.
Yeah. Dude, thank you. Bye, Tim.